As you can see, we've assembled, I think, a fantastic team. It's a cross-section of Alaskans, and we actually have some folks that are helping us from out of state as well. Donna Ardwin, for example, is working on our as our OMB director. So what can we expect this year? You should expect this administration to fulfill our campaign promises, and that includes a repeal of SB 91, a full PFD, as well as making sure that we finally get a sustainable budget. Not saying that all of this is going to be easy or any of this is going to be easy, but has to be done. And I think we've assembled a team that's going to make it happen. And so I'm pretty excited. When it comes to the budget, we're going to work at making sure that our expenditures match our revenues. And our revenues, as calculated by our Department of Revenue, is $3.2 billion. So we're going to be working, and we have been for some time, we'll continue to do that. We will work on making sure that the budget we present is in line with revenues. And we will we'll have the conversation once that sponsor substitute is introduced later on here when the session starts. So one of the charges that I gave the commissioners from the get-go, and we reiterate this at every meeting, is we have got to find savings. We have got to find where we are duplicating services, where there is services that really are archaic and no longer needed. And we've been working diligently at that task, and we continue to do so. And that's the charge that has been given to these folks here at the table. We are trying to render down every dime, every penny we can in this budget to see where it's at, to see what it's doing, to see if it's effective. Because we know that in order to get the reductions that we're going to need, we have to go through this process. And I think from what I hear, we're doing a pretty good job. We still have some more homework to do, and we'll continue to do that. As mentioned, here in a few weeks, we will we'll roll out a sponsor statement. We're also reviewing regulations. As government grows and as government, the older the government is, oftentimes you have more and more regulations, and sometimes you don't even know why you have those regulations. So that's another part of the process that we're doing, is we're having our commissioners, our policy advisors, look at the various regulations that we have to see if they are out of date, if they're doing the job they should be doing, and if they're getting in the way of Alaskans living their lives. And so we are going through that process, and we'll continue to review the regulations and earmark regulations for potential revisions. And on January 2nd, this is when we'll present our State of the State speech before the joint legislature. January 22nd? Yeah, that's what I said, January 22nd. Thank you, over there. Well, January 22nd is when we'll roll out the State of the State. Part of what the conversation that we're having is, for too long we haven't been really upfront and honest about the budget. We use different numbers. The administration has used different numbers. The House has used different numbers. The Senate uses different numbers. Our attempt this year is to try and get everybody on the same page so that Alaskans can see what numbers we're actually using, and so that it makes sense to them, so that we have a baseline to all work off of. And those conversations are occurring. We're going to be transparent in our budgeting. We're going to be upfront. Alaskans will know exactly why we budget the way we did based upon the revenues. And we'll be looking at making sure that core functions that are related to the Constitution and core services that all Alaskans use is, to the best extent possible, represented in this budget that we roll out. PFD. You know where I stand on the PFD. I believe the PFD is not an appropriation, it's a transfer. I believe it's a transfer from the Permanent Fund Corporation to the people of Alaska. How it got rolled into the concept of an appropriation the last couple of years, I'm not sure, but we're going to unravel that. We believe that that transfer is a transfer due to the people, and so is the back pay due to the people, and we're going to work at making sure that happens. And we're still in the process of finalizing the details of the plans. When we do that, we'll once again have a press conference, and we'll start to roll those details out and have a conversation with you once we get those details finalized. SB 91, that was also a priority in the campaign. I don't have to go into the statistics that Alaskans are having to deal with, law-abiding citizens, but I can tell you this. We're putting together a serious package on public safety, and it's going to be a comprehensive package. And the only thing I would say at this point is if you are a criminal or you have the tendency to commit criminal activities, this is going to be a different Alaska starting this year. And the staff that we put together, from the Department of Public Safety, Amanda Price, to Corrections, Nancy Dahlstrom, our Attorney General, and everyone in between, it is geared to making sure that Alaska is the safest state we can make this in the country. And so I'm going to go to great lengths to make sure that we are much safer, that Alaskans are not looking over their shoulders, and that it's the criminals that are on the run, not law-abiding Alaskans. Yeah, are there questions at this point that we can answer, and we can also have our commissioners answer questions as well.
Steve, you want to go first?
Steve Quinn with KTVA. Governor, can you give us a sense of when you're going to have your CS for the budget? And along those lines, you talked about cuts. We've heard for 4 or 5 years government's too big and the budget's too big. When will that stop, do you think?
Well, you should see a CS coming out in early February. No, it'll be in early February. And in terms of the government is too big, when will that stop? I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
When do you believe government will no longer be too big? What is your measurement?
Well, again, we're going through the process now of looking at every detail, and we are questioning every detail to see if what we're doing in terms of services or expenditures, if those services and expenditures are things that Alaskans want and need, are they redundant, are they archaic? And then again, we have to make sure that our budget, our expenditure, is in line with our revenues. So again, we're going to be producing a budget that's based upon $3.2 billion in revenues.
James Brooks.
Governor, maybe for you or for Commissioner Tangeman, but what happened with the VFD application? How many folks had their identities, their information exposed?
I'll defer to the commissioner. He's got the details.
Thank you, Governor. The incident took place on New Year's Day. We took the website down within a matter of a half hour. The clock when we took it down was under 100 folks. That doesn't mean all 100 were affected by this incident. It is now back up and running. We're over 16,000 applicants. The site is secure, and we have had no problems with the site since then.
Do we know what happened?
We're going to do a root cause analysis. That's the next step. Step number one was to get the problem fixed, get the trust back that the site is safe for Alaskans, and get the process rolling. So that's what we're going through today. We'll analyze what went wrong next. Worked closely with Department of Admin, with the Office of Information Technology, to do an analysis of the software, of the hardware, of all the coding that went into it. Microsoft was on board assisting as well. So half the time was figuring out what was going on, and then we really tested it aggressively for a few days just to make sure that we had solved the problem.
Next question.
Greg Knight, KINY. Governor, in addition to the repeal of SB 91, do you want to see stronger sentencing for criminals?
Yes, we've been having that discussion, so you'll see some of that across the board.
What does some of that discussion look like? Can you say anything as to what discussions you've been having?
We're going to be, we are really taking a look at, for example, those that deal in drugs for a profit. We are seriously looking at those folks that are preying upon Alaskans, our most vulnerable, our children, our women. And we're going to be tightening up those sentences for those particular crimes, and there'll be others as well.
Becky Bohr with the Associated Press. Governor, on the issue of the repayment of portions of the dividend not paid, during the campaign you said that there was money in the earnings reserve. At this point, are you anticipating still using the earnings reserve for that? And would you anticipate a lump sum or paying that over? What kind of logistic details, I guess, for that?
First question, yes. Second question, we're working through the details on that, but it's our intent to fully repay this. Because again, we feel it's a transfer, not an appropriation.
Can I just follow up? There are some people that are worried that we can take too much out of the earnings reserve. Can you respond to whether you're concerned about bringing that too low?
We are going to follow the law, and that's one thing you'll find out about this administration is we're going to follow the law. And I don't think that's going to be the issue. The biggest issue we really need to worry about is the continual growth of the budget. We have no sideboards. We have been for quite some time unable to control that growth. And oftentimes we chase expenditures with the revenues. If the revenues go up, we spend as much as we can. If the revenues come down, the expenditures don't come down correspondingly. And so that's our biggest issue. It's not the PFD. The PFD was never an issue until the last couple of years.
Governor Rasha McChesney with Alaska's Energy Desk. There were some headlines yesterday about some executive compensation for the head of the Alaska Gasoline Development Corporation, and I think with his bonuses last year, he pulled in upwards of $1 million, and I'm wondering if that's reflective of the priorities of the administration going forward.
I was surprised with that. It's not reflective of the priority of this administration, and there's been some changes at AGDC.
Andrew Kitchenman, Alaska Public Media, and KTOO. Regarding the PFD, with the current formula, and you say it's a transfer and not an appropriation, the legislature also passed a bill this year that would, a law that sets a percentage amount that would be drawn each year. PFDs traditionally have varied quite a bit from $800 to more than $2,000. Are you concerned with the interaction between those two laws?
No, not really. We have a calculation draw that's in law, and we have a POMV draw coming out of the earnings reserve, and we'll make that work with the transfer.
But that could lead to pretty large differences in revenue for the budget. Is that going to be an issue in the future?
That's, well, our calculation, once again, allows us to fully pay out the dividend and allows us approximately $1 billion, a little over $1 billion in revenue from that particular law, SB 26, that draw. That's where we get the $3.2 billion for the budget.
Governor Dunleavy, Kevin Baird, Juneau Empire. So, do you have any plans in the near future to address climate change in Alaska and making announcements on policy regarding that?
To be honest, it's not been a priority of this administration or the campaign. What has been a priority is getting this budget under control, getting the public safety issues under control, and putting people back to work.
Steve?
Governor, you talked about seeing the PFD as a transfer, not appropriation. The Supreme Court, the last Supreme Court, seemed to think it could be viewed as an appropriation. How do you?
That's their opinion. I see it as a transfer. I've always seen it as a transfer, and a lot of people see it as a transfer. The language somehow crept into the budget discussions the last couple of years as an appropriation. And there's a couple theories why. I'm not sure why that happened, but it's in my view that when the permanent fund goes renders out its at the end of the calculation, the 5-year look back, what the permanent fund dividend should be that year. That's been the law for decades. To me, that is a transfer. The Department of Revenue is merely a vehicle of convenience to get that check to people.